Hey everybody, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. I have just spent the entire week with the all-new 2023 Lexus RZ 450e all-electric luxury SUV. And so we're going to have a good look at it inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive, and I'm going to tell you what it's really been like to live with. All right, my friends, before we get out on a drive, let's talk about what we've got. This is the all-new 2023 Lexus RZ 450e, and this is the luxury all-wheel drive trim grade. Now, this is an all-new vehicle for Lexus, a clean sheet of paper, dedicated electric. It doesn't have any commonality with any of the gas-powered models as such. It's based on an all-new architecture that Toyota builds that's also shared with the Toyota BZ4X and the Subaru Solterra. Now, while it does have the same underlying architecture and powertrain design, the specification on this is a little bit higher because we are in the luxury model. It has all-wheel drive standard, it has more power, and the battery under this, a large lithium-ion battery pack, about the size of a queen-size mattress under the floor. And so the design and the format of the chassis very similar to most contemporary electric cars. As tested, we're at $67,000 and some change with quite a few options, and you'll see those floating across your screen as we go through. The first one I'll point out is this beautiful metallic light blue sort of silvery shade of ether, and it goes really nice with the blue and white interior, which we'll have a look at here in just a moment. Now, looking at the styling, this has sort of the latest iteration of Lexus DNA. It's got a lot of three-dimensional sculpting, sort of origami work as I like to call it. You can especially see that in the front fenders and the hood. When you look at the face, unquestionably a Lexus. It's got that spindle grille silhouette minus the grille. We don't have an engine there, no reason to have a big grille. And it's just nice, clean, and I think well wrapped, for the lack of a better way of putting it. LED headlights, of course, coming around the corner. Because we are in the luxury model, this does have 20-inch wheels in a nice sort of satin chrome, dark chrome finish. I think they look very handsome. And this, of course, does have SUV-like styling treatments, that being the wheel arch moldings and the lower rockers. Very classy in gloss black. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that the charging port is at the front of the vehicle, my favorite location of all time for charging ports. I always prefer to pull straight into a parking space or to my garage if I'm charging the vehicle. I'm not a backer-inner, and so I like it when they put that charging port at the front of the vehicle as opposed to the rear. From the three-quarter view, I would say that this has a pretty athletic stance. It's high in the rear and it looks chunky yet muscular. Look at the shoulder line there in that rear quarter, the way the actual glass dies down and then the metal comes out. Then you've got a big three-dimensional form in that LED taillight, and it's just nicely formed, I think. I like the way it looks, obviously. So this does have LED taillights at the back, a nice light-up signature at night. This is an interesting detail up here, though. If you look at this fin, it looks like a wing in silhouette as you come up to the side, but as you get up and around to the back, what is that? What is that? It looks like there should be a wing in between, like they just decided to take that off, but it's clearly designed this way. But I don't know what you call these. They're kind of cute, I think. I mean, I don't dislike the detail, I just don't know what to call it, but nonetheless, something unique to point out. And so overall, I think the styling here does well for Lexus. It's one of the most athletic and well-formed silhouettes, I think, in their lineup right now. As you look around the interior, you can see why this is one of my favorite spots in the RZ 450e. Now, I'll tell you right out of the gate, I have been a fan of Lexus interiors for a great long time. I rarely find one that I don't like because Lexus, one of the hallmarks is that they have great material quality, good switchgear, and they've really learned how to do luxury quite well. This is a well-appointed, ultra suede lined interior that has this beautiful shade of sort of a slate blue. It's navy blue, but not quite as punchy. And it's contrasted with some nice white trim elements. It's very futuristic, and I find it very refreshing in a sea of black and tan and gray that we see so often in the car market. And when it comes to technology and creature comforts, it's very well appointed in this trim grade. Heated and ventilated front seats, heated seats in the rear, and it's got quite a few other little bells and whistles. One of them is the Dynamic Sky panoramic roof. You press a button and it goes clear. You press the button again and it goes opaque. It's a milky white. It doesn't completely block out the light or the convectional heat, but it is a pretty cool little deal. So as I sit here and look forward, the steering wheel has a nice, very comfortable feeling, luxury feeling covering. It's not leather, it's a simulated leather, but it's just got a unique texture to it that I've never felt before. Good quality switchgear. It has paddle shifters on here, and those are primarily for setting your regenerative braking settings. And then ahead of me, a digital instrument cluster that has some level of customization to it. Over here in the center, a large 14-inch diagonal touchscreen display that houses a lot of the settings and controls for climate control. And you've got a knob down here in the center for the volume. Down on the center console, it has a wireless charging pad along with a bank of ports and a nice simple center console, sort of a simulated wood. Maybe it's real. Doesn't look entirely real, but a very tasteful looking sort of Scandinavian flavor wood texture, and then cup holders off to the side, and then your shift selector here in the center. Now here we have center console storage. It's about the size of, I would say, 2 rectangular Kleenex boxes. You'll note that this has the owner's manual in there, and that's because we're missing a glove box. Ouch. That is a big omission. I don't care what any engineer tells me, that is an omission. There's no frunk here like you find on some electric cars that also still manage to find room for a glove box. So no frunk, no glove box, and so we're down quite a bit in terms of storage. There is a little bit of a space down here below this cantilevered console, but very little there. I do find these seats very comfortable. Adjusting them and getting them in the position I want to be in is good. It does have the comfort setting where when you turn the car off, it pulls the steering wheel away and pushes the seat back. And I have found that they are very comfortable places to be in my week with it. The rear seat of the RZ is actually quite roomy, as you can see, and very airy, as you can see, primarily because of this nice white roof above me. As I sit here, as you can see, I've got plenty of leg room. I've got about 6 inches ahead of my knees, and these seats are set for my height, about 5'9", with my boots on. And the seating height, I am sitting down a little bit low, and even though we are in an SUV, this is a little bit more of a sedan-like seating position, and that is because the floor is higher to accommodate that big, huge battery that's under the floor. So this is a little bit more like sitting in the back of a sedan in terms of the position, but I do have good side bolstering, and these nice ultra suede seats hold me. They kind of feel like they're gripping me tight. I do have some good amenities back here. There are vents on the back of the console, which is great because we are in the summer here in Arizona. I did mention we do have heated seats back here as well. Power ports, both USB, and down below there's actually an AC port to plug in a laptop or something like that. Headroom is very good. I've got about 6 inches above my head in spite of the fact that we've got this extra roof. Now, these seats do fold down in a 60-40 split, as you'd expect, and look at that. A nice, almost nearly flat low floor, even with the electric vehicle packaging. A nice cargo area back there when you're using that. Under that floor, you will not find a spare tire on this particular vehicle. This comes with a fix-it-flat emergency kit, but down in that lower storage well, a lot of room for extra things down there, maybe making up in some ways for the fact that we don't have a frunk up there at the front. Here, there is a nice fold-down armrest, and that ultra suede feels so good, but there are cup holders here. So rear seat comfort, pretty good. So when it comes to rating this interior, it gets high points for design, it gets high points for quality materials, and it gets big demerits for lack of storage. No glove box, and the air conditioning this week I found absolutely was dismal in terms of performance when it came to any temperature over 100 degrees. It just doesn't have the power to keep up, and when you do use it, it really hits your range. And so they have a lot of work to do there in terms of comfort in this interior as it relates to climate control. Especially, this interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is the latest, greatest, top of the line connected cloud-based suite of services and suite of functionality that we get from Toyota and Lexus. It is connected to the cloud via a Google backend, and therefore it has all the connectivity and the voice activated features, search, navigation that you could ask for. A lot of that is subscription based, I will point out, but it has Mark Levinson audio, which is always worth the spend in money. It's a great audio system, and the graphics are very good. Navigating it, once you learn it, it's very easy to use, and you can set it for both night and day. Right now I've got it on the white setting so that you can see it, and that flicker that you see, I don't see that here looking at it. That's all about the camera, so don't worry, that's not what it looks like when you're sitting behind the wheel every day. But it's well laid out, very well done, and I'm happy with how it is to use. In this particular model, I have the 360-degree backup camera, and so that's very helpful for parallel parking, backing up, parking, all sorts of things. It's a very well done system. It gets high marks from me, 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now it's time to take a drive. And you know, the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're out in the middle of nowhere, complete stop, and go. Woo! Nice sound. And 60. Now this has an artificial sound that plays through the speakers. It's not quite as cool as the Jetsons car on the cartoon, although why couldn't they just do that since they're making artificial sounds? So power is reasonably good. This has 313 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque. This has a motor in the front, motor in the rear, and the power is actually biased toward the front, the more powerful motor being at the front. So this does have all-wheel drive and an all-wheel drive feel, and so the power delivery is pretty good. It says 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds from Lexus, and you can see what I got there. Now, we have to talk about range here. Range on this particular model is 196 miles. If you get the lower trim grades, it's 219 miles. And one of the reasons it's lower is because the 20-inch wheels actually cause a lower range. Another thing that causes lower range is this air conditioning system. If you put a full charge on this thing and you get in and it tells you the full battery, the minute you turn the air conditioning on, almost 50 miles drops off of your range. 50 miles, that is a major big tax for air conditioning. And the problem is this air conditioning works awful. Right now it is 98 degrees outside and this thing is blowing stale gym sock air at me. It is barely keeping up with the heat. I am sweating in here right now because this air conditioning is so bad. And I hate to say that, but it really hits the range. So in addition to not being good air conditioning that's powerful enough to keep up with heat, at least where I live, it really taxes your range in a big way. So that is kind of a big disappointment that we have here. Now I've got paddle shifters here that give me some pretty strong regenerative braking. That can help your range overall. And while you can make the regenerative braking pretty strong, it doesn't quite get to the one pedal driving behavior that some of the other electric cars offer up. So you can adjust it down to where that can help your range a little bit. God, I'm sweating in here. This air conditioning is awful. It's almost to the point where I wonder if something's not right with it, but I have seen a lot of reporting that the air conditioning in these cars just isn't quite up to snuff. But power, when you lay into power, it delivers it very well in a very refined way. So at least power is good while you've got it. And it's quiet and it makes that cute sound. So this powertrain, power's adequate, though a lot of the competitors out there do offer more in a large way. Range could be better, could be a lot better, and efficiency, that is the last part of our powertrain conversation. 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour is what the EPA says. That is on the low side in light of all of its competitors. I got 2.2 in my week with it. That's the lowest I've gotten on any electric car ever. This powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. So, ride, drive, and handling. This has a fully independent suspension front and rear, and because we're on the luxury, this does have the larger 20-inch wheels with low-profile tires. And to my surprise, even though this weighs a lot, 4,619 pounds, this does have a nice handling profile out here on the curvy back roads. And steering feel is reasonably good. And some of the sharpness does come by way of these low profile tires and larger wheels. But you throw it into a corner a little bit too quick, you will find that these tires do have limits on their grip. The other thing I found out in my week with this is because we do have an electric car, they tend to be a little bit more stiffly sprung, and in spite of the initial feeling of cushiness that I have here, sometimes when you hit tar strips or expansion joints, bumps around town, things like that, it causes vibration in the structure a little bit, especially as I look forward and I'm looking into the HUD display projected on the window. That jitters a little bit when I hit bumps, and at nighttime the headlights tend to jitter. You can see those jittering out there on bumpy roads. Not so fun. And so in that way, I chalk that up to a little bit of structural rigidity that needs to be improved on here and there. It is hush quiet in here, though, I will tell you. 55.3 decibels on our 70-mile-an-hour highway test. And that goes to acoustic windshield and rear glass, a lot of sound deadening in here, and the fact that, of course, this is an electric car. There is no powertrain noise to speak of, at least not an engine and transmission making noise in there. So it's a very quiet ride, and on the highway at speed, a very stable one at that. It feels like a heavy car because it is. And so overall, it has a nice level of handling. If you want a little bit more of a cushier ride that's a little less harsh, you would want to go a trim level down or two that has the 18-inch wheels instead of these 20s, because as mentioned, over some of the bumpier stuff, these 20-inch wheels do cause a little bit more harshness. Braking feel for an electric car, because it's mostly brake-by-wire, actually has a pretty good feel and tune. I do find that it feels pretty natural, so I'm impressed with that overall. So when it comes to the overall ride and drive and handling experience, a good first try for Lexus. It's better than some of the electric cars I've tested, but it still has some electric car-isms, and that goes to its weight and some of the compromises inherent. The bobbing ride over undulations and things like that included. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my dear friends, we've had a look at it inside and out. We've taken it for a drive. Now it's time to talk about dollars and cents. $67,000 and some change. Is it worth the money? Is it competitive? Well, here's my take on this vehicle. I'm very impressed with it. It's a nice first try from Lexus on their first dedicated EV model. And so what I would tell you is that if you're used to the Lexus experience, perhaps you've owned one or two and you like the brand, you're going to love what this offers. It's got all of the Lexus hallmarks, the interior, the comfort, the driving, everything. It looks, feels, and smells like a Lexus. You're going to love that part. Now, if you're looking at this purely through the prism of an electric car and how does it compete with all of the other options out there, it starts to fall toward the back of the pack when it comes to performance, range, and efficiency. And the air conditioning doesn't work that well compared to most everything out there that I've tested. So those are the areas where I think this is their first try. They didn't get really aggressive on those things. It's kind of a conservative approach. That's a nice way of saying it doesn't quite measure up to most of what you can get in the way of competition in power, efficiency, and range. But it still is good enough for most people. If you're just living around in town, you don't have hot climates like I do here in Phoenix, it's a good all-around luxury SUV in the EV segment. That said, I put value at 4 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars. So there you go. If you like what we do, please see our latest video right there, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.